Inside this factory is where it's all made possible, from concept to final product in a matter of days. Innovation manager Rudy van Geurp is responsible for the development of the whole concept. Hey Rudy, good to see you.
Hi, Pablo.
So you helped develop this modular timber housing system, right?
Yes, correct. We are here at the assembly factory, and here we assemble all the 3D modules. We build houses and apartments.
So in this kind of factory, how many modules and eventually houses can you build per year?
Eventually we will go up to 4,000 modules, and that will be approximately 500 houses.
Wow, impressive. And up to how many stories can you build with this system?
At this moment we can build them up to 5 to 6 floor high.
Okay, exciting. Well, show me around.
Yeah.
So Rudy, for your modular housing system you use LVL, laminated veneer lumber. Did you choose it for a specific reason?
Yeah, it's high strength and high stability, so we don't need as much material as in a normal housing. It's really still a massive timber, and these elements we can really combine, and yeah, as you can see, we can screw them together. It becomes the 3D modules when we leave it at the factory.
So super efficient system. We saw the linear LVL pre-milled element coming in the factory, and then they come to the first workstation here. So what happens next?
Yeah, here is the workstation where the workers can check the models and combine it to the elements we produce here. So this is a roofing element, and they can check from screen to real life.
So everything what's in here is precisely copied in the final element.
Yeah, so, and this is also a checkup. Can't go wrong.
So an important part of circularity is also the division of functions. So the bearing structure, the installations should be divided and flexible. So how is that solved in your system?
Yeah, with all these LVL elements, which are CNC milled, prefabricated, all these holes we can use for the ventilation, and the smaller holes for the electricity. It's all really plug and play. And then in the future we can reuse it with the new regulations when these houses will be reused at different places. So yeah, it's real future proof.
So I see an intriguing connection here. What happens?
Yeah, so the CNC milling elements came along here. Here we use the screws, and here are the screw holes for the poles. So the poles really fit in here, and we just use the screws to make it the bearing element in 3D model.
And if you want, you can dismount it again in the end of life.
Yeah.
And reuse it.
Yeah, we can reuse the elements, just unscrew it, and yeah.
Easy as that.
Easy as that. Here we are at the working station where the cladding is mounted. But before the station, after the columns, we have made the wall and the insulation. So this is just the final stage, applying the cladding.
So and what kind of cladding can you put on?
Yeah, we prefer the wooden cladding, but you can choose all kinds of material.
So it doesn't have to look like a wooden building from the outside?
Correct. Okay. Here you can see the first steps of the infill, which have already been done, but the next steps will be the sanitary and the kitchen.
So it's all pre-prepared, and that's the next step?
Yeah, it's all pre-prepared, and as one complete module it will be brought to the building space.
I guess this is the final stage. So after adding the cladding and the infill, what happens now?
The module has been packed and will be brought outside, and there it can go on a truck.
How many of those modules fit on the back of a truck?
On the back of the truck there fit 2 modules, and it's designed by this width and this height. So without any permits we can transport them throughout the Netherlands.
Oh, that's really nice. And are there any other benefits to this way of transport?
It's a lightweight material, another benefit, because there are low emissions.
CO2 and nitrogen.
Exactly.
Really nice. I like it a lot. If in a nutshell we have to conclude why we should do this 3D prefab building.
As you can see, the climate is really controlled here. The conditions are very good. There's no bad weather inside. So the quality of the end product is always the same. It's a really good quality. It's cleaner. You can see it's less heavy labor. And eventually in the building site, we can assemble one house a day with 9 modules.
9 modules in one day.
We can assemble 9 modules in one day, and after that, a couple of days for the finishing, and the house will be ready then.
Okay, let's take a look at the building site.
Yeah, we go to the building site then.
Great.
So welcome at the construction site here of our social housing project. These 14 houses we built for a housing association. Yeah, as you can see, the modules are placed already.
So you mentioned 9 modules for one house. Can you explain what we see here and how these were installed?
Yeah, as you can see, there are 3 modules on the ground floor, 3 on the second floor, and 3 for the attic. And you can see there's only labor for the exterior cladding on the divisions.
And this is all installed in one day?
This is all installed in one day for one house.
Great. Well, I'm curious about the cladding.
Yeah, let's take a look.
So Rudy, you explained that in the factory the cladding is already installed, but what happens here? And also can you explain something about the fire safety?
Yeah, these 2 modules are from 2 different houses. And for the fire safety we have placed over here a fiber cement board. It's the fire stop, but also the cladding is fire impregnated, and it will prevent the fire to switch between the houses.
And what about the boards? I'm intrigued by those. How long will this last on this facade?
So this is fire impregnated pine and also thermally modified. So it will last for decades. And these elements are placed in our factory.
Right.
So this is the only part which have to be done on this construction site.
So in total, if you look at the facade construction labor, how much time do you win by doing this all prefabricated?
We have reduced 80 to 19% of the labor on the construction site for the exterior.
80 to 90%.
80 to 90% less labor on the construction site.
Really impressive. These social houses are quite large, 115 square meters. And the Housing Association chose not to include yet the sanitary units and the kitchens. So we're in the living room here. How can we distinguish the modules? Because I don't see them.
Yeah, these are 3 modules. So this is the division between 2 modules. And yeah, you can see it over here in the flooring. Yeah, that's correct. Here you see the LVL load-bearing columns. These load-bearing columns are screwed together, so it's all combined to one modular house.
But I don't really understand. How are these connected horizontally then?
Yeah, so we screw them crosswise over the entire height, and then it will be one wall for the construction part.
Right, so like this.
Yeah.
Okay, now I understand. And how do you do that in a vertical way, the vertical connection between the modules?
The vertical connection I can show you on the stairs. So here you can see the vertical connection on every column of the module, so every exterior column, and the columns are bolted together. So it will be this the vertical connection between all these modules.
At every corner, so you have 4 connections in total per module.
Yeah, every module has 4 connections, correct.
And in the end of life, if you want to, let's say, move this building, we can just unscrew it?
Yeah, so this is bolted together. And at the end of life or after a couple of decades, we can just unscrew it and we can use the modules, or we can refurbish the modules.
Right, so it's a very flexible solution and you can move it to another place. So this is really circular building. Well, what I noticed, it's really spacious and just modular housing.
It's a normal house, just as we built a decade ago, but yeah, on a very new way of building.
And compared to traditional brick and concrete housing, how much faster can you build this way?
We can build this a lot faster. So we can place it in one day, what I showed earlier.
Yeah.
And the finishing will take up to a couple of weeks.
And traditional construction would take?
Yeah, normally we say a couple of months.
Okay, so there's a really great time benefits there. So Rudy, I notice it's a rather simple, safe building site with few machines and also few workers. More or less, what is the difference in workers with a traditional building site?
We can say we have reduced the labor on the construction site by 60%.
60%, so that's really impressive.
It's just a start, I think, and eventually we will reduce the labor on the construction site even more. I'm sure of that.
Well, I'm super impressed by your system and I want to thank you greatly for this tour.
Thank you. Thank you for coming here.
Well, I've learned a lot. We have seen that the modular prefab timber home does not have to be bland at all. It can actually be a very pleasant and appealing home when the timber is incorporated sensitively into the interior design. Moreover, the prefabrication of the timber elements offers several clear benefits. I am convinced that bio-based modular construction is one of the best ways to tackle the housing shortage while still meeting climate and circularity goals.